Hi, RSU 13 families. My name is Stephanie Tribo, Director of Curriculum Assessment and Instruction, and today I'm going to walk you through the new K-5 Progress Report. This new progress report was generated by RSU 13 teachers during collaborative grade level work, in which grade levels agreed on subject area language and crafted the language into student, parent, and teacher-friendly I can statements. Teachers ensured coverage of key skills as well as vertical alignment from one grade to the next, and we want to ensure that as educators we're really responding to parents asking, what does this report card mean? So let's take a look. This is a sample progress report, so this is made up student information here, but you'll notice it will say the year at the top. You'll have your 2018-2019 progress report, and at the very top it will also indicate which trimester progress report this is. So this one comes from trimester 1. The first thing that you'll see is a list of I can statements that are linked to the habits for success. And you'll notice it says homeroom at the top, and these are just generated by your student's teacher. We do have some structures in this district where you might have more than one homeroom teacher that might be scoring a student if it's a shared class. But you'll see your entire list of these habits for success skills. They are the same from one year to the next, and they're looking at a student's ability to be responsible, to persevere, and to collaborate. The name that you'll notice next to each of the headings here, like homeroom teacher here is Sarah Smalls. That's your instructor's name. In most cases, you'll have the same instructor for all of your major subject areas, and then a different instructor for music, PE, and art. Although, again, we do have some grade levels where some students are getting their subject area, their content area, such as math, from a different teacher than they might receive English. So you'll see the name of the teacher that they're receiving that instruction from right next to each of those grade level headings. And speaking of the grade level heading, this looks a little confusing here. I want to clarify what that 3 means. You'll notice that next to every heading, that 3 is the subject heading and grade level. So for example, music, 3rd grade, because this is all from a 3rd grade sample proficiency progress report. So that is not a score that's been averaged up into a subject area. And in fact, that's one of the key differences. We're not averaging scores up into anything anymore. Instead, each of these I can statements is intended to be a separate statement so that as parents, you can see the areas where your student is doing well and areas where there are some struggles and the student needs extra support. So looking down through here, probably one of the first things you'll notice if you've seen a progress report of the past is that there is no 3.11 or 2.67. It's only a whole number. If you take a look at the grading scale box, it will describe what each of those numbers represents. So we have a 4 being exceeding, a 3 is a meeting, a 2 is approaching, a 1 is below, and an IE stands for insufficient evidence. On this particular example, there aren't any IEs, but if you do see an IE, it tells here that the assessments were not completed or turned in. It could be that the student was refusing to do work. There was not enough evidence available for the teacher to determine a score based on a body of student evidence. So that would indicate that there was not enough, the student didn't take enough assessments or do enough of the work to show whether or not they are proficient. And without indication, they don't end up getting one of these scaled scores up here. As you're looking through the I can statements, when you see a 4, that's an indication that the student was exceeding the standard. It means that they've demonstrated and applied deeper knowledge and understanding of learned concepts and skills. They're exceeding requirements for grade level work. They're consistently applying and extending learned concepts and skills independently. You really want to be looking for those 3s and 4s. A 3 is demonstrating and applying knowledge and understanding of learned concepts and skills, meeting requirements for grade level work, and completing work accurately and independently. You will see some 1s and 2s, perhaps. A 2 is an indication that the student is not there yet. So an approaching is demonstrating partial understanding, maybe understanding some pieces of what's being asked and instructed, but still needing support and additional instruction in other areas. It also indicates that there might be some level of teacher support there. A student requiring even more teacher support and additional instruction would be receiving a 1, a below. So there's one example on this progress report where the student has a I can statement that says, I can explain how people in my community offer goods or services to fulfill wants and needs. That student was struggling in that area and received a 1, meaning that with additional instruction and support from the teacher, that student could continue to improve in that area, but is really not there yet. Continuing on, as we take a look at each of these statements, you'll notice a number in parentheses after each statement, G3, and it tells us here that G3 indicates grade 3. There are some students that may have off grade level standards. If a student is a GT, gifted and talented student, they could be accessing some of the I can statements above grade level. And if students have some struggles in some areas, potentially in ELA and math, you would see that the student would have a G2 or perhaps a G1 and know that they're having language pulled for them from below grade level so that you're seeing a more accurate picture of where students are. The I can statement itself is called a performance indicator, and it's doing exactly what the name says. It's indicating the level of performance that a student is showing on an assessment. And for these scores, it's actually taking the student's most recent assessment with the idea that as students learn, they're continuing to improve in these areas. So rather than taking an average of all the work that they've done from early learning all the way up through once they've learned a skill, we don't want to penalize them for some of that early learning where it's okay to make mistakes and it's okay if they don't know it right away. So rather than averaging a score, we are taking that most recent grade. With that, there are certainly times when a student's most recent score might not reflect exactly what they can do. It could be that they were ill on a day of an assessment or had multiple absences, causing them to not get that assessment in on time. A teacher would be able to go back into their grade book and see a series of how students have done on past assessments on that same skill and use that body of evidence to determine if that student is meeting or if that most recent score is truly a representation of where the student's skill level is. I want to just take a moment and show you a few more things in addition to this proficiency progress report. And if I met with you at the beginning of the school year at either a meet and greet or a family night, I gave you the same progress report, but it had a back side to it. And I just want to show you where to go to find that information because the back side of this walked parents through some of the changes that were made to the progress report. So if I go to rsu13.org, I'll show you how to get to this website. If I hover over the Central Office tab and click on Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment, it will take you to the Curriculum, Assessment, Instruction, and Resources for Education homepage. And in the very top bar here, if I click on Parent Resources, it will bring me to some parent messages. And as I scroll down, a list on the left of the K-5 report card changes. And you'll see here the sample proficiency progress report is exactly what I just showed you. And the then and now comparison is that sheet that I had photocopied on the back of the sample progress report when I had an opportunity to meet with some families at the beginning of the year. So the then and now details some of the major differences between the language on our previous progress report and the changes that we've made. Again, we've got our I can statements that are in teacher, parent, and student friendly language. They're intended to be much more clear as opposed to some of the vague language that we had before, or language that was very broad and combined lots of multiple skills, making it challenging to determine exactly where problem areas broke down for students. And then just sort of skimming down through here, again, the student scores are based on a student's most recent score on an assessment, but teachers also do have access to students' previous scores and are able to use their observations to confirm that score. Just in case there is a significant drop or if that most recent score is an outlier to the trend that a student has been on. Student scores are whole numbers, as you saw on the new progress report. And student scores are reported by trimester only. So you'll receive a trimester 1 progress report, a trimester 2 progress report that will cover different I can statements for trimester 2, and then a trimester 3 progress report that will cover the third trimester I can statements. There may be some I can statements that are carried through. You might especially see this with some of the writing I can statements, with the idea that a student's writing continues to progress over time. So teachers have that option to continue to pull that language through. And the last reminder on here is that a score of a 1 or 2 at any point indicates that a student needs additional support with the skill to be proficient. And teachers are providing that additional support to students, but we want to ensure that parents understand what the language on the progress report means. It's the intention that by the end of a trimester, students have received enough instruction and have been assessed enough times that they're showing proficiency. They should be scoring 3s and 4s. So if they're not there yet, it indicates that they do need additional support. A few more tools that I'll point out quickly here on the K-5 report card changes are a digital family guide to each grade level in case you want to see a printout that includes all of the I can statements for each grade level. I did hand these out to families at the beginning of the year. This is the colored version here, but there's a printer black and white friendly version as well. And I'll click on the first grade one as an example. When you click on this guide, it will take you to a list of all of the performance indicators that will be covered during that school year. So a parent of a first grader will get to see all of the things that we expect first graders to learn and be proficient in. Most of these are broken down by trimester. So you can see here English Language Arts. This is what will be covered second trimester. This is what will be covered third trimester. But when we get to math, and science, we have not broken these down by trimester yet. We are still working with some materials from when we were 2 separate districts, MSAD 50 and MSAD 5. Now that we're one RSU 13, we're trying to be cohesive and collaborating across the district in as many ways as we can, but this is still a work in progress to continue to align our curriculum resources. So those ones have not been broken down yet by trimester, but you'll see here music is, PE is, and as we continue to make changes, we'll certainly share those with parents. And one other resource I want to mention to you that's available on this website for you is at the very top here again. If you go over one more on this top tab to RSU 13 standards, This will show you all of the standards K all the way up through 12 that the district is currently using. The proficiency expectations grades K-5 as an example. If I click on that, I can see all of the language that that are included in our I can statements for each grade level, but I can also see a vertical map if I'm interested in seeing ELA and how kindergarten progresses up through grade 5 in ELA. I can search just by subject area here. And then the last thing I wanted to show you about this page is going back to the student's progress report. If I'm curious as a parent how my student is scoring in each of these habits for success areas, and I want to know what the rubric looks like for those, because again, that language is the same, kindergarten all the way up through 5th grade. I can look at the habits for success, K-5 here, and I can see the rubric that teachers are using to score students in those areas of responsibility, collaboration, and perseverance. So I would encourage you to certainly check out the website, and I'm hoping that this has been helpful for parents to have an overview and families to have an overview of what the new progress report looks like. Should you have any questions, you are certainly welcome to reach out to teachers, particularly during teacher conferences, and you're also welcome to reach out to me as well. My email address and phone number are right here at the very bottom of the screen. And again, this is Stephanie Tribo, Director of Curriculum, Assessment, and Instruction.